So now we've said your camera guesses how much light is in your in-camera light meter. Now, the thing about your in-camera lights meter is you can actually change how exactly it reads the light presence. It's still going to read the reflected light, but then there's 4 metering modes which tells us exactly which area of light it should process in your picture. The first metering mode is your evaluative metering, and in this mode your camera detects the main subject's position as well as the brightness, the background, and any lighting you have around the subject. And then your camera evaluates everything and then sets the correct exposure. Now, this is the camera standard metering mode, and it's suited for most subjects, even if they're in a backlit condition. So this is the camera metering mode that your camera uses unless you choose to change it. So it gets your details of where your main subject is as well as the light, and then it evaluates everything, even things that are away from your main subject, and then it sets the proper exposure. Right, so next we have the partial metering. Now, the partial metering is really good when the background is much brighter than the subject because you have a lot of backlighting behind your subject. So if the subject is in front of the sun, for example, or artificial lighting, this is the metering mode you should choose. Now, what happens is partial metering covers around 8% of the viewfinder area, but at the center. So your metering determines the exposure based on this 8% of the center of the viewfinder area. Next, we have spot metering, which this metering is for a specific part of the subject or the scene. So the metering is weighted at the center, covering about 3.5% of the viewfinder area. It is possible to move which spot you want the metering to take place at. Next, we have the center weighted average metering, which basically in this mode, the metering is weighed at the center and then averaged out for the entire scene. So it's more concentrated at the center, but then it still takes the whole scene, but not at the same concentration as it does in the center. So the concentration dies out in terms of the light it reads. Now, I'm going to answer this question because it's really the most that's been asked of me when we come to metering. Everyone always asks, what is the best metering mode for your camera? Well, with all photography, it really depends what exactly you are shooting. If you're shooting something with a lot of backlight, I'll use partial or even spots or evaluative, just because it does take into account your subject and the light coming from your subject. And the center weighted is great if you don't have the backlight. So it's good for getting a natural average in terms of light. So you're still focusing on the center, but then it's not so drastic reduction of light when it comes out to your scene, like the partial and your spots as well. Now, if the metering modes scare you, please don't let it. A lot of people don't actually change their metering modes too often. It's just a really handy thing to keep in mind if you get on location and you're still not getting the right exposure. You're getting more lights from your background than you actually want. It's a handy thing to know, okay, fine, you have to just change your metering to a partial or even a spot to decrease the amount of light coming from your background. So it's a handy, quick little fix to just have in the back of your minds. But like photography, a lot of photography becomes easier with practice. What I suggest is for you to just experiment. maybe go out, pick somewhere quite scenic, or pick a subject that you want to take pictures of, either a person or an animal, a dog, for example, a cat, and then just go through the metering modes and then see how it differentiates with the reading of the light. You might want to include some background lighting or not while you go through the metering modes. That's the only way in photography you actually get comfortable using these techniques and these settings.